What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 15th episode of our F750 CrewCab build series. The previous episode, you saw us swap over our fuel tanks, which means in today's episode, we are driving to Albany, Oregon to pick up a 2016 F650 rear axle, which will hopefully make the swap from air brakes to hydraulic brakes smooth and easy. So there's nothing to it but do it. Let's get on the road, and it's an early one. Shake the tip. After 7 hours of driving, we made it. You versus the guy she tells you not to worry about.
It's all in the brain.
All right, you guys, we made it back to Kyle's shop after a 6.5 hour long journey, one way, so 13 hours round trip to Albany, Oregon to pick up this 2016 F750 rear axle. I have been looking all over Facebook Marketplace, eBay. There's this third-party website that has HD trucks, parts, and whole vehicles. I've looked on that, searching for this specific rear axle. It is from a 2016 F750. The biggest reason why we got this was because of these bad boys. We got rid of the air braking system and needed a hydro setup. Look at those monster calipers right there. And another reason why I was looking for this axle is because it's also a 2016. That's what the donor truck is. So it'll make all the wiring, all of the like ABS sensors, things like that. The hooking up process will be way easier because it is also from a 2016 Super Duty, or not Super Duty, but 2016, so you get the gist. Another cool feature this rear axle has is this bad boy. I had no idea what this was when I was looking at it. I showed Kyle. I thought this was just part of the drive shaft, just part of the yoke. But Kyle mentioned to me that this is also part of the braking system. There's essentially like a emergency brake in this that would almost be in your hubs, that also closes when you have the emergency brake engaged. So that's a pretty cool feature. It has the 10 lug pattern, obviously, and that's what our wheels are, of those Bud MRAP wheels. So altogether, I'm stoked to finally have this, which means we can now swap over the rear axles and get this in its final resting place for probably the rest of its life. I did get the leaf springs, which was an option. I got them for an extra $100 for the pair, which I thought was a steal of a deal. It also probably was way easier for them to dismantle it because they could just take off the bolts and dismantle the whole rear end relatively easy. But we're going to see if these will bolt up to the F750 frame relatively easy, because I figured 2016 leaf springs are probably in better shape than 1976 leaf springs. So we'll double check that. It'd be nice to just kind of roll this whole thing up underneath and be able to bolt everything in and make it relatively quick. I was told this rear end was perfectly fine. It's off obviously it's from a 2016, so it can't be that messed up. I did see the truck that this came off of, and the whole entire front end was completely destroyed, because I tried to buy the front axle for this, but it was completely bent. So I'll have to find a front axle. I was looking at it. There's no seeping from the hubs, anything like that. So I believe that the hub assemblies should be decent. No seepage or anything like that. The rear diff, there's no seeping from that. The only thing that's there is pretty much from the brake fluid and whatever else, because obviously they tear these out as fast as possible in order to kind of get them sold and get them out of their yard. So I understand that, but we'll go through the whole thing, double check to make sure nothing needs to be rebuilt, nothing needs to be repaired, because the last thing we want to do is get this installed, trust that the braking system works, and then take a 10,000 pound truck down the road and have something fail. So that'll probably be the first thing we do once we get it installed, is double check everything and then rebuild anything we need to do, get new calipers or rotors, hubs, anything like that if need be. But yeah, this is it. I am stoked because we can now swap this bad boy on. We can get the new wheels and tires put on and get them mounted, get them in their final resting place. They're just taking up space in my garage now, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to give you guys a little rundown of this and what it was. Alrighty, now that we cleaned off the back of the truck, we're gonna start removing all of this stuff, all the air components, things like that, because we don't need any of it anymore. The wiring, all that can be tossed away with. So we're gonna start gutting this rear end, and hopefully it'll be out relatively soon. Alrighty, with everything removed, the tanks, the lines, the electrical, Kyle just jacked it up, and we're gonna get something to brace it and hold it up, so that way we can remove this rear axle and roll it out of the way and bring the new one in. Well, you guys, we got the rear axle pulled out from underneath the truck. We were hoping just to grab the new rear axle, slide it up underneath it, and use these pre-existing factory leaf springs, but these packs are no good. This one's pretty decent, but this one over here, the bolt that goes through it and holds everything together, it sheared off. These should all be together, and yeah, it just sheared off on the last one. You can see it right there. So we are actually going to bring in the new rear axle, put it up underneath it, get all the measurements for the drive shaft, drive line, and be able to take the factory drive shaft or drive line. I don't even know which one is which. I feel like they're synonymous with each other. Anyways, we're going to get that measurement, and I can take it to a shop to get it cut down to size, re-welded for everything that we need for the new rear axle. So that's what we're going to do up right now. Is we're going to slide the old one in, get some measurements, pull it back out, and remove these leaf springs, because I am going to get them rebuilt, which is going to be nice because they will rebend them. They will take them down to bare metal, paint them, make them look really, really nice, and this will also help the ride, not the ride height, excuse me. This will help the ride going down the road, having fresh rebuilt leaf springs, and it'll save us a lot of headache in the long run, just having the confidence that these are fresh and new and rebuilt. Well, there she blows. We got the rear axle swapped over. We had it all mounted up. And it fits surprisingly well for what Kyle and I were anticipating. We knew it was going to be close. We thought it would fit, and it bolts up.
I knew it was going to be perfect.
Kyle knew it was going to be perfect. Very optimistic. No, it bolts up completely perfectly fine. Like, everything matches up ideally. The things that we did and are going to have to use in the future are obviously this top plate and this bottom plate from the 2016 axle, because this is a square tube axle and the 76 is a round tube axle. So obviously we have to use those because they're meant for a square tube axle. Everything is bolted up. Everything looks kosher. We're going to swap out the wheels and tires, the military wheels and tires, onto this, so that way we can lower it down and get an accurate measurement from the transmission to the yoke of this rear diff, and be able to get that drive shaft all nice and cut up and fit perfectly for this project. But yeah, there she is. Get some measurements before they tear down this thing again, and remove these rear springs to get these packs rebuilt. But you happy, Kyle?
Sure.
Kyle's happy.
I was itching my back.
Kyle's itching his back too. All that back hair.
Actually.
Shh, don't tell his wife. All right.
Now I'm happy.
We're going to swap out some wheels and tires, and we'll let you guys know what it looks like here in a bit. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, I f***ed up. I bought a rear axle from a 2016 F650, and I was under the impression that all 650s and 750s were a 10-lug bolt pattern, and clearly I was wrong. There are some F650s that are only 8-lug bolt patterns, so yeah, we now have to find a new hub that is a 10-lug bolt pattern and swap them out. We're thinking we can essentially just swap it out from here. Sorry, the glare is really bad. From here to here, swap these out and have essentially a hub from a different F650 or 750 that has the 10-lug pattern that which will allow us to run the military bud wheels that I have, because we obviously can't mount these right now. Huh, Kyle? So I screwed up. I thought everything was smooth sailing, but turns out I was wrong. So we're going to do a little shopping for that, but while we're waiting on that, we do have other things we can do. We're going to keep cleaning off the rest of the frame, swap over the fuel tanks, and kind of keep going on things that need to be done. But this is kind of a kick in the nuts. We were hoping to have the rear tires and wheels mounted and kind of get a visual representation of what the truck's going to look like. But yeah, that kind of puts a dagger in our plans for today. So we're going to keep rocking and rolling on the other things we have, and you guys will see that shortly. So while I'm tearing out the fuel tank, Kyle is he's grinding down all the surface rust on this hub to find part numbers. We are having a heck of a time finding a part number for the specific wheel end or wheel hub in order to buy a new one to make the 8-lug to 10-lug change. He did find a website that said it's on this edge right here, so we have found
on the backside.
Or on the backside. So we have found a couple numbers. Yeah, they didn't tell us specifically. They said it's going to be somewhere on there. So he has found a couple numbers, but they aren't working in this other website's database to tell us exactly what hub this is. So he's grinding away and cleaning it all off, and hopefully we will find a part number soon and get one of these ordered up so we can finish this rear end. Alrighty, so Kyle found a part number after, well, hopefully, fingers crossed. He found a part number after cleaning off this whole entire thing. We found the website I referred to earlier has a massive database, and everything lines out, except we are going to take this apart and double check that the bearings are the same on this one as the one we found online. There's actually not a lot of information on these wheel assembly or hub assemblies, which is kind of strange because this is a 2016. It's not like it's an older model, but yeah, we're about to have some Uncrustables and tear these brakes apart. We're going to remove these and check out what bearings we have to match them and then get some parts ordered.
looks like me after Taco Bell. Okay. The plan is to research if we can find an adaptable brake bracket and caliper that'll bolt to this spindle and a hub that will fit it with a rotor. Not 100% sure if we'll be able to find one. If we don't, we're hoping we can find a replacement spindle that will run with all that stuff that we need and be able just to swap, I guess you'd call it the steering horn. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not going to care anyway. But anyway, we'll just take this horn. I think relatively for most these size trucks, like C-class trucks, I think most of these steering horns and this shaft are about the same size, so they're kind of universal. So we'd basically just swap this piece and this piece onto the new spindle and replace it out. If not, new axle. Yeah, it's that easy.
Alrighty, we have an update for you guys. We are going to go ahead and get a new front axle for this truck. We're going to look for an early 2000s to 2016, preferably 2016. It just depends on what I can find. What we were hoping for was to be able to find a hub, a modern hub that had the same bearings, inners and outers, as this pinion. And what that would allow us to do was to put in a modern hub that had disc brake or hydraulic brakes and use this same axle. Things like this is all relatively the exact same, no matter what year of truck it is for a front axle. And the unfortunate part was one of these bearings actually had the same part number from the same manufacturer as a whole assembly or hub assembly, from a 2016 Super Duty. So we are one bearing away from actually being able to buy a front hub assembly for a 2016 F650 axle and being able to swap it onto a 1976 F750 axle. That's just the name of the game. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out, but in the long run, it'll probably be better to just swap out the whole entire axle. We have measured distances between the spring packs. It'll work, and I think overall for the wiring harness, the ABS, things like that, it'll be better to have a 2016 axle under here for the sake of those things, as well as steering box, and things like brake lines. Everything should be kind of a plug and play. We might have to extend some lines here and there to make it work, but for the most part, it'll be a lot nicer in the long run to have updated axles in the front, not just the back. And to carry on with the bad news theme for right now, I have just ordered some rear hub assemblies for this truck. They are for 2016 F650. I'm just dumbfounded that I bought a rear axle with 8 lugs instead of 10 lugs. For some reason, I was thinking all F650s and 750s were a 10 lug bolt pattern. I was wrong. You can get an F650 truck with the bolt pattern of an 8 lug. So I just ordered, it's literally just this with the rotor. Everything's included. It just is a 10 lug pattern instead of an 8 lug. So those are ordered. They're on their way. And that's pretty much the stopping point for this rear axle install. Obviously, we can't do anything more with this until those new hub assemblies come in here. And once that happens, we will toss the assemblies on. We will toss the wheels and tires on, as well as toss the front axle on. And then we will lower this back down to the ground, have the truck sitting on the wheels and tires, have the springs compressed, and at that point, we will figure out our drive shaft, as well as kind of tear these spring packs apart, get them out to a company that remakes springs and repacks them and gets them all cleaned up, and be able to reinstall them and do kind of a final assembly with the truck for that. So that's not how we wanted to end this video. We were hoping to have the rear axle done, completely done with wheels and tires on it, and we were hoping to have hub assemblies to be able to just swap on here. I have to order these parts. They are a few months out, or not a few months, they are a few weeks out, as well as a couple states away. They are not terribly expensive, but the freight on them is just as much almost as the part themselves. So we are going to give you guys an update, almost like a axle swap 2.0 video for the front and rear axles, and get some wheels and tires on that. And we will have a fully hydraulic brake truck by the end of it. All right, you guys, that's a wrap for today's episode. The episode didn't go quite as planned. We were hoping to have both the front and the rear axles replaced, the truck back on the ground on the wheels and tires that we have for it, but sometimes you run into some snags, especially when everything is such a custom truck like we have here. So we appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next one.